All right, guys, it's about time we talk about Tobias Harris here in the Philadelphia 76ers, and it's time we talk about a little bit of a Bradley Beal action. Now, I'm going to start off and say I'm not objectively saying no to the whole Bradley Beal situation because, of course, it's possibly bringing in another, big time, multiple perennial all-star guy who can give you 25 plus a game. And it's never bad to have too many of those guys on the team. But at the same time, there are a lot of problems with the idea. And I think where I sit right now as a content creator, as a diehard Sixers fan, and as a person who is aware of fit in the city of Philadelphia when it comes to basketball, I would probably say no to the whole deal. But let's get into it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the family. I'm almost at 1.2K. Let's get to 2K by the end of, I don't know, a couple of months. Let's shoot for 2K, guys. And follow me on Twitter too at gregmelly27. I'm dropping some hot bangers lately. Let's get into it. Tobias Harris has been objectively terrible. Now, I'm not looking at his stats right now since Harden came into town, but I can tell you from the eye test, he is literally the only guy who hasn't been able to play well. Last night he went 4 of 10, though he did play some pretty good defense on DeMar DeRozan. But I just think that's a matchup thing. I think DeRozan is one of the few guys that Tobias can genuinely play with because he's not this big-time perimeter scorer. He's not a super quick guy. He's more of the same type of quickness as Toby, and Toby has probably an inch or two on him that he can be able to contest his mid-range jump shots. And so I think when it comes to Chicago, we're just a very good team when it comes to matchups too. So I'm not going to say that Tobias Harris is a great defender, but at least he's giving us energy on that side of the court because when it comes to offense, guys, he is atrocious. I mean, he's as bad as anybody else in the city of Philadelphia right now, not including Furkan Korkmaz, of course, but Tobias Harris just doesn't fit with this team. Like, it's very obvious to anybody who watches games, to anybody that is aware of the game of basketball, that Toby is the odd man out. And when it comes to this offseason, it's probably going to be a deal moving him because it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. He's not a catch-and-shoot guy. He's a guy who is terribly afraid to put up a shot. And when Harden is breaking down defenders the way he is and kicking out to Tobias Harris for literally wide-open threes, you have to shoot that. And he's just not that guy who is going to shoot that. Toby's the guy who's going to get the ball. And all we need is him to either shoot the quick three or swing it to Tyrese Maxey, who is also on the perimeter next to him, or whoever the other guy is, because it's an open shot. We need ball movement. 4 out of the 5 guys on our starting lineup know that and understand that and quickly move the ball. But Toby is a run stopper. Harden breaks down the defense, like I'm saying, and finds Toby open so much. Toby needs to shoot that ball, but he doesn't because he is so in his head right now because he's clearly aware that he's the odd man out and he's just not playing well and he's not shooting confidently. He's not playing confidently. And offensively, he's literally off of the team for minutes and minutes of stretches that he just can't play basketball with this team. And we try so hard for him to get incorporated with the team and get him hot and get him going just to boost his confidence. Even we're up by 15 points against the Bulls, and he just can't do it. We kick the ball to Toby, and instead of taking a quick shot or swinging it one more pass for an open three, which would be a brilliant play if you aren't confident with your shot, Matisse Thybulle can do that at a high level, but Toby can't. Toby instead catches the ball beyond the three-point line and pump fakes when nobody is there, and then either takes 4 dribbles and shoots a contested mid-range jumper that doesn't look good, take it to pump fake, dribble it 4 times, pick up his dribble, and then try and finally kick it out. But at that point, the defense is already adjusted. He kills our ball movement. He kills our motion offense. He kills so much what's going on, and the flow of basketball is dead when he's on the court. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's useless, but I think deep down, maybe he's just better off of the bench. George Niang is a seamless fit alongside Harden because he is a quick trigger, 3-point shooter who just wants to put up as much as he can, and he does it at a really high level at 40%, and he has a high arcing shot that is not getting blocked despite his low vertical off the ground. Niang is just a way better fit, and if you look at the plus-minus, the numbers show that we're just a better team with Niang and Harden together than Tobias Harris and James Harden. And that's really, really upsetting because we're paying one guy $180 million and the other guy $4 million. But at the end of the day, maybe Tobias Harris is just better off of the bench. Maybe that's something that his confidence can get a boost from. But he's also, at the same time, what I've seemed to notice the past 5 games with James Harden is Tobias Harris has a bigger ego than I thought. And that really upsets me because when you are not a good basketball player anymore and you just do not fit with the ebb and flow of this team, We need you to dial your ego down and just play the game of basketball when it comes to fit, not what you think you are more comfortable with, not what you think you're better off at. Because Tobias Harris, buddy, I hate to be the one to tell you, but we do not need post-up contested mid-range jumpers on your end anymore. It just doesn't work. And Tobias Harris is best when he is attacking the rim on quick decisions, but he just doesn't seem to do that more and more lately. And we can't have Toby putting up 15, 16, 17 shots a night, because that just means less shots for Tyrese Maxey, who is clearly our third option, less shots for Joel Embiid, who is clearly the MVP, and less shots for our point guard of James Harden, who is literally the main conductor of this offense. Tobias Harris cannot play the post because it kills spacing for James Harden and it kills spacing for Joel Embiid, and he can't play the perimeter because he doesn't shoot the ball. So my question to you guys is, what is Tobias Harris good for at this point anymore? And I'm not going to be like, we can't put him on the bench because he gets paid too much money to be a bench player. Yeah, but the Sixers were more potent and were better when Al Horford came off the bench, and I know that was probably hard to stomach at first because he's making upwards of $160, $170 million, but he was way better of a player coming off of the bench. Because right now, guys, it's not about putting the best 5 players together. It's about getting the best 5 players who play the best together. That's what it is, and right now, George Niang is that guy. Right now, George Niang is that guy that should be starting or at least getting more minutes than Tobias Harris at the 4. And I'm not saying we cut Tobias Harris's minutes down to 15 a night, because obviously that you can't do that. Tobias Harris is talented enough to be getting 25 minutes a night on any given basketball team, and that's just an objectifyingly fact statement right there. But at the same time, I think we need to be way more conscious on the minutes that we're giving Tobias Harris, because I hate to break it to you, he's just not a 35-minute-a-night guy, especially on this Sixers team the way it's constructed. We need Tobias Harris to give us 25 to 30 minutes a night instead, and giving us, microwave scoring off the bench if that's something he can do, because he's a guy who can attack weaker defenders, but he's not a guy who we can just count on as a spot-up shooter, and we need a spot-up shooter to play alongside Embiid and Harden. And that's going to lead me into a Tobias Harris probable going to be involved, has to be involved in it, a sign-and trade for Bradley Beal. Now, if we're not trading Tyrese Maxey for James Harden, I can absolutely put this on my life that we would not trade Tyrese Maxey for Bradley Beal for so many different reasons. One, simply enough, Bradley Beal is nowhere near the player that James Harden is. So Daryl Morey would not do that, obviously. Which leads me to the idea of fit again, because it's so much more than just getting the best players together. Look at the Nets. I know that's injuries and stuff, but still, you can look back at teams' history when they're trying to build these super teams, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And I really don't think Bradley Beal is that guy. Mainly because he's a guy who is a dominant ball handler who can score and shot create at an extremely high elite level. But so can James Harden, and so can Joel Embiid, and those guys are the guys that need the ball in their hands. Bradley Beal, if we would get him, would be a $220 million spot-up three-point shooter, and that is a terrible idea. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And to completely take Tyrese Maxey out of this development of this team and of this roster, it makes even less sense. Bradley Beal, what would this roster look like? What would this team look like? Joel Embiid and Matisse Thybulle at the 4, and then a combination of Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, and Bradley Beal. But the thing is, those are 4 guys on our starting 5 that kind of need the ball in their hands to be really effective. Tyrese Maxey is a little bit different because he has completely perfected the craft of an off-ball guard, but defensively, where we would struggle even more because Bradley Beal just is not a good defender. Harden has been pretty great the last 5 games of being a defender, but again, is not going to be a clutch perimeter lockdown. And then when you're moving Matisse to the 4, it's a matchup nightmare for us in the worst way, because we don't have somebody that can guard a John Collins or a Giannis. We arguably could put Embiid on Giannis, but then whoever's going to play the 5, Matisse would have to do that. And Matisse is not a low post defender. He's barely a perimeter defender. He is an all-time off-ball defender. Matisse Thybulle is great on destroying guards. I mean, look at Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine's shooting under 30% on his career against Matisse Thybulle because he is such a good perimeter, fly-around, off-ball help defender. But moving Matisse to the 4 would kill us. And I just don't understand why we would be interested in Bradley Beal, because we have James Harden. We have James Harden now. If we didn't get James Harden and we still had Ben Simmons and going into the offseason, that would make a lot more sense, because Beal would play that James Harden position, just not as good. But now that we have Harden and Tyrese Maxey as our backcourt, it just doesn't make any sense to go out and get another ball-dominant, shot-creating guard who had a really down year when it came to shooting the three ball in general. What we need to do is trade Tobias Harris in this offseason for, let's say, Harrison Barnes and another piece. We have to trade Tobias Harris for shot makers, just guys who can consistently hit you 38 to 40% from three, stand around the three-point line, create space for the guys of Joel Embiid and James Harden and even Tyrese Maxey, and can play defense. We need 3-and-D, 3-4 wings. That's what we need. We don't need another Bradley Beal. We don't need another shot-creating, ball-dominant guard, because the more we have of them, the less we can utilize the absolute genius of James Harden. The less we can utilize the post-dominance of Joel Embiid. I don't like the idea of Bradley Beal. But on the contrary, it's another perennial all-star. It's another guy who is really damn good at basketball. And the idea that a lot of general managers have when you just kind of create as much talent as possible, throw it on a team and say, figure it out. I mean, there are signs of that working, but you need guys to be able to be willing to take back seats. And I don't think James Harden and Joel Embiid are willing to take more of a back seat than they already probably have. I mean, I think Harden is going to be a player who's going to age incredibly well because he dishes out assists like nobody I've ever seen wear a Sixers jersey, arguably ever in the NBA in the past 20 years. Him and Chris Paul are the best point guards the NBA has seen when it comes to shot generation for other... yeah, that's the word. Just by creating other shots for other people, Harden and Chris Paul do that better than anybody I've ever seen in my life over the past 20-something years. So I understand Harden's willingness to take a back seat, but Harden is still a dominant shot creator and a better shot creator than Bradley Beal. I don't love the idea of giving Bradley Beal the ball and not letting Harden and Embiid run their pick and roll or create shots for other people. I just don't love the fit. And I think us Sixers fans understand the idea of fit better than other fan bases because we've seen how bad it can get when you just try and go out and get the best available talent. I like Bradley Beal, but I don't like Bradley Beal enough to let him come over to Philadelphia and screw up what really seems to be working right now, especially if the Sixers make a deep playoff run. Bradley Beal's not the guy that's going to do it. The guy that's going to do it is going to be the guy that's like a Harrison Barnes, who can give you 15 points on just great efficiency, but also play defense at a better level than Tobias Harris is. And that, at the end of the day, is what we need. That's why George Niang is so effective, because we don't ask him to do anything he's not comfortable in doing. And that's why Tobias Harris is so bad, because we need him to just shoot the ball, and he's not comfortable doing so. We need 3-and-D wings. We don't need Bradley Beal. Peace.